Welcome, welcome. We're going to do a fun little project tonight. It's New Year's Eve. And so we thought we would introduce to you some sequins. Sequins are just so fun to work with. They're beautiful. They're expensive. When you look at tops, you can see $200 and $300. They get very expensive, especially nicer sequin fabrics. And you know, sometimes we say, what's the difference? You'll see in some sequins, the sequins are actually more pliable, and cheaper garments, they're really plasticky. And I know I'll say that word again, and it's not a word, but understand that they're very hard and they don't ply well. And in some cases when you're sewing, you actually have to take them off and sew them back on, but not in our real contemporary fabrics. They're really easy to work with. And so we're going to go through this process, and it's hopefully a lot of fun for you. I'm going to show off my top. I love it. So let's start at the beginning. I put up some new fabrics, and we've got some ones that are still on sale. This is Thursday night, so they're still on sale. And we've got some black with silver sequins. We've got some beautiful colors. I chose the gold because I really wanted you, obviously, to be able to see what I'm doing. And I know when you use black, you all hate it when I use black because you can't see. I get it. So this is fabric 39.54. 39.54. I'm using a yard. You might need more than that. You might need 2 yards. It depends on your size, but I'm just making a little sleeveless top is all I'm doing. Okay, so simple as possible. I'm just doing a little sleeveless, and I chose the Cowl 550. Later on in this video, I'll say to you to wait and choose it by how the difficulty of your fabric and how hard or easy it is to sew. But my initial was I just wanted a beautiful sequin cowl top. Sequins are really popular this spring. We're going to see sequins being worked in little tops like this to our everyday wear, and I love it. I love them. I think they're so pretty, and I don't know any women who don't love sequins. They're just fun and they're beautiful. And so this is 550 that I have on. This is a Cowl-Neck Blouse. It's for a woven because you don't want a negative ease going through the cowl. So even though this is a knit fabric, I'm still going to use a woven pattern, again, because I don't want negative ease going through the cowl. And then I have Bailey's top on for my overlay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, even though this is a knit, simply because of the pattern of the sequins, there's a linear pattern, I'm going to give it a bias fold. And so you just do a 90-degree angle like that. I'm going to take the pattern and I'm going to put it on there, and that's all I need to do. Just make sure you fold it enough to cover the top and the bottom. Easy, easy to do, and you can see your sequins. When you fold this cut edge over along your lines, you'll see you want to make that you want to make that straight, and then you know you have a bias here. And a bias doesn't have to be actually a true bias to drape the way it wants. On the back, you don't need to cut bias at all if you don't want. You can just cut straight a grain. Again, it depends. This has a little, like a zigzag pattern through the glitter, through the sequins, and it's very pretty. I ignored it. You can kind of see it through this top. But it really just isn't prominent enough to worry about it, but it is very pretty if you wanted to highlight it and do something with it. So that was the cutting out. The only thing I changed in the cutting out is be aware of whatever cowl pattern you're using. If you're using, for instance, this is actually a blouse, so it's a blouse armhole. I came in and I used my sleeveless template. So I put up my sleeveless template there and brought it to the bottom. Now, because this is a cowl, the armhole changes shape. And so if you'll take your template and trace it and then cut to the edge of the template so that the armhole itself becomes flexible, then you can make sure that your sleeveless armhole comes up on the side. Or if you know how much it comes up automatically, just bring it up an inch, whatever that number is, and then just connect. But again, because you've got fullness in the front here and darts are built into this cowl, the armholes take a different shape. They're the same size as my sleeveless armhole, but they take a different shape. So if I take my sleeveless armhole and cut right along to the edges and create pivot points, then I'm able to make this armhole flexible and make it change shape like my pattern. So the shape of a cowl armhole the shape will be different than a regular armhole simply because of the fullness that's been put into the neckline. Okay, just an FYI. And not in the back, it's just in the front. So use your sleeveless template on that so that you get a nice, just a nice flush arm under here. You want it to be, to cover and not be revealing, or I do, so that if I take my top off, you know, I can take my top off. There's a lot of times where we have a top on, where I can't take my top off tonight. I'm going, you know, I'm not hemmed. All right, so we've got our fabric, 39.54. You know the yardage. You know how to lay it, you know how to cut it out, you know how to change the armhole. Pattern number 550 and 39.54 is the fabric we're using. So then what I decided to do is show you a little clippets of me sewing this particular top. And the reason is so many of us, as we sew with sequins, we're a little bit afraid, or we're afraid to do it. And I wanted you to really see that it's fun and it's easy. And I sewed this top. You saw me sew, you're gonna see me sewing a little bit of it, and didn't break a needle at all. Didn't break any. There's sometimes when I break needles where I'm going seam over seam, or I'm going layers, and you just happen to hit it wrong. But in most cases, you won't have an issue. So let's take a look at this little video, and we're doing it on the serger first and then on the sewing machine. So my purpose here is to just show you sewing on sequins, because I've gotten a lot of questions on it. A lot of you want to do it and you're just not sure of it. So I'm going to sew just a little bit, and I'm going to do this on the serger, and then I'll do a little bit on the sewing machine. Sometimes sewing of sequins depends a lot on the quality of your fabric. So what you're going to find is that if the fabric is cheaper, the sequin is a little more thicker and plasticky. And then, I know that's not a word, but if you'll just kind of use that as a goal, you can see here, and I'm stitching in contrasting thread, that those sequins are breaking, but they're just breaking off and they're yielding to the needle. And that's the way it should happen. So generally in a nicer fabric, you'll see that those sequins will just break, because the sequins are thinner and they're finer, and they'll just yield to the needle. So you get a beautiful seam there. And then I'm just going to do the shoulder seam. And then what I want to do also is just show, so this is the cowl. I'm making the cowl. And I chose it because there's few seams. Now, again, once you find out that you don't have any problem with your particular sequin, then you can go ahead and do some, sorry, I missed the beginning of that. You can do something more complicated. But I would take your sequin fabric, if you're working with sequins, and sew with it. Just sew 2 layers together, just a scrap piece. If you're not having any problem, you can say, oh, I can do a more complicated pattern. And if you're having problems, then you know, you can either scrap it all together, or you can decide to keep it more minimal. Let's go to the sewing machine. I'll show you it on the sewing machine now. And so now what I'm doing is I'm hemming the bottom. I didn't serge the edge. You don't need to with this fabric. So I'm just turning it up at 3/8 of an inch. And because it's curved, you don't want to sew it any more than that. And you can see though Sheen is handling these sequins without any issue at all. Just like it was a regular fabric. And then if you look on this side of it, you can see that you can't even see that thread. I picked like a taupe color thread that just really matches beautifully. All right, so it's just really easy and really fun. Then also I want you to see a little bit here where we go to press. And again, sometimes you think that you're gonna melt away your sequins. That's not the case, and so you see me pressing it here. Also then, before you start, and you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just pressing the seam. And again, just press it just like regular fabric. You don't need to do anything special, but make sure before you sew with it how it sews, serger, sewing machine, and how it presses. Because that's going to determine what kind of pattern you can use and how simple or complex it is. So that's it, easy peasy. Keep in mind that again, sequins are going to be all over. This fabric is $10.99 a yard, 2 yards. If you need 2 yards, it's 22 bucks for a sequin top, and I love it. And I just paired it with a black pair of yoga pants and a little wrap. I'm sure you guys have a zillion wraps. We still probably even have this fabric. I don't remember, 3501 or 3502, somewhere right in there. And they're beautiful and they're flattering. Simple little top, great little earrings, you're set to go. So mainly Happy New Year. Hope you all are safe and home, hopefully. It's a great time to sew. It's a great time to have a hobby. And we'll see you next year. Bye for now. Happy sewing.